Jeff says we found Bigfoot up here in Montana, and we have video and tracks and testimony to prove it. Well, I am super stoked that we hit 10,000 subscribers. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button to help me to my next goal of 25,000. Hey, by the way, a gentleman from Maine won the free t-shirt. So when you saw that one on your same property, what did he look like?
He was black. He was black. Yeah, he was black and he was tall. The door was still locked, but at the same time, 6 chickens were missing.
Hi, this is Jeff Sokol, and he had some incidents right here in Montana. And you know, he said he felt like he was being watched, and that's what happened to me in my encounter.
So on our property in Marion, Montana, we're out there and I'm out checking a whitetail carcass like I typically do, and going out there to see, you know, if we had any wolf activity or anything like that on the carcass. And I could feel somebody watching me from the top left. Well, I've already had encounters before, heard growls and stuff like that. And so what I did was I'm sitting there and I just kind of glanced up like that up at the top left, and way up at the top of the hill, sticking his head out from behind a fir tree. There was about 8 foot off the ground. There's a big branch coming off that fir tree, and he's looking at me like that from behind that fir tree. I looked up, I said, "I see you," just like that. And then he spun around right behind that tree, and I didn't see him anymore.
Was that pretty remote country there?
Yeah. So it's 20 miles outside of Kalispell, and then
good elk country.
Yeah, great elk country. We had lots of elk on the property. 20 miles outside of Kalispell, and then 2 miles up into the hills from there off of Highway 2, so off the main road.
Wow.
So 2 miles back in out of there, and then we. So we were pretty remote, but that was just one incident of several that we've had. Not to mention, the livestock that's been stolen, the livestock's been taken, mostly chickens. Just get 6 or 8 of them at one time. Just get taken. There's so much activity back there. They would take deer bones and put them into stumps and stuff like that to kind of mark their territory, where they are, where they didn't want you to cross into, and it's palpable. The presence is palpable once you walk in there. I've been growled at several times carrying firearms around the property. My wife's been growled at. Never anything vicious or anything like that, but definitely letting you know that, hey, we're over here right now and we don't want you here. So
wow. This is Jeff of All Trades YouTube channel. Jeff of All Trades. Tell us a little about that one in Bigfork.
So in Bigfork, I was just driving around Bigfork and I saw a bunch of trees down in one spot, and went to go look, and I started feeling this really heavy being watched kind of presence, right?
Yeah.
Like the way that I equate it to is, I walked into a bar room one time in Wyoming, in a small town in Rock Springs, Wyoming, and it's like the jukebox just stopped and everybody turned around and looked at me,
Yeah.
It's like, what's this Cajun guy doing, And so it was kind of like that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And where you just feel like you don't belong and you're not wanted, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you step in. And so I started getting that kind of feeling to leave, that pressure to leave. So I pulled my phone out and I started kind of scanning around. And sure enough, when I got back to the house, I was able to zoom in on everything that I captured on the phone, and sure enough, in multiple spots, I saw that Sasquatch. I'm getting a really heavy sense. I'm being watched right now. I mean, it came up on the camera. I could not see it with my naked eye. So today's video is definitely not about gardening. It's not about man skills. It's not about being a traditional man. It's not about building things. It's not about creating things. What this is about is something that is in the woods in Montana. And this is something that we got on video when we were looking at a bunch of downed trees. I think it's a Sasquatch. And the reason I think that is because I've educated myself on the subject along with other scientists, actual experts on this. And First Nations people, Native Americans, and so this is a real thing. This is a real phenomenon that takes place. They're not monkeys. They are not Gigantopithecus or any of the other misinformation that's being put out there. You have been duped. You know, the media has hired the dumbest idiots they can find and put them on the Discovery Channel with the naked eye. But when I put the camera on it, and got back home and blew it up on my computer, then I found this. Sorry guys, this is gonna be a little shaky. This is Jeff. I'm over here in a remote area in northwest Montana, just off the road. Coming into this road, you saw lots and lots of trees being uprooted. And now, we're in this massive area, acres and acres and acres of uprooted, overturned, stacked up trees, wedged trees like this. This is all brand new, guys. All brand new destruction. Look, you see how far back that goes? I can't even get in here. Look at this. Look at this. There's no tracks in here. There's no tire tracks anywhere. This was not a logging operation, a clearing operation. No heavy machinery's been back here. This is straight up. This is straight up just getting pushed over. See how far back I can get without getting in too much trouble. I'm getting a really heavy sense that I'm being watched right now. Which happens from time to time on our own property. I already know that this is going to be shaky. The camera's going to be shaky. I've never seen anything like this. Guys, where I live, I have lots of structures on my own property. Look at this. They're snapped off. They're trapped in half. See, there's no tire tracks.
How tall did it appear to be?
He's a big man. He must have been every bit of 8 feet tall. It's, wow. I mean, his shoulders were so wide, and he kind of, his traps, you could see zoomed in, like the traps, you know, showing off in the sunlight. You know, just wow. Massive guy. And he's big shoulders, big traps going up to the base of his head and everything. So really,
and what I saw in there is also a lot of prints. Looked like about a 16, 18 inch long print.
Yeah, so we had a lot of prints on our property. We had a lot of prints.
In Marion?
In Marion, yeah.
Oh, okay, but yeah. There looked like prints in Bigfork too.
As far as I recall, I didn't see any prints in Bigfork, but I might have had it in that. I think I put prints in that video probably that I got from Marion. Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
You know, Jeff, I totally understand that feeling of being watched. My buddy and I went on a canoe trip and we pulled into a remote island in Flathead River. And I couldn't sleep, and we were pretty tough guys. We did quite a bit of fighting, and he was a wrestler for Columbia Falls, and I'm just laying there for like over an hour, couldn't sleep. And I said, "Jay, you up?" And he said, yeah, something's watching us. This is creepy. And then right after that, some giant splashes.
Oh yeah.
And it much bigger and bigger beaver tail. And I believe it was Bigfoot throwing giant rocks in. That's what they do.
Sure.
To scare people off.
As far as those guys are concerned, they've growled at us. We've not had any rocks thrown, but definitely they've broken trees.
Yeah.
So when I've been out to one spot where they've made, I'm not going to call it a nest, but it's definitely like a blind type of deal. I go out and look at that one spot, and then I came back an hour later, and a big fir tree was broken across my trail. That on a bluebird day like today. I mean, that stuff happens constantly.
And how big of a tree was it?
That tree, amazingly enough, that tree was every bit of 8-inch OD. You know, wow. So it was about that big around. And then on our property, all these trees were broken at the same height.
Interesting.
You know, so it's the same guy going around and breaking these trees over. We had trees, James. We had trees that were that big around, they were twisted, twisted around. 3 of them in a row, twisted around and bent over in the same direction. It's astonishing the strength of what it would take to do that.
Well, you know, we did a recon on a fresh sighting out in the Kiowa area, and we found a tree. It was only about that big, but it was broke off at 8 feet, and it wasn't in a windy spot at all. And we thought, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. And I have since found that that's one of the habitual things they do to mark territory.
We would find trees that they not only they'll bend over one tree this way, then they'll break this one, and they'll break it and lay it across to keep those other 2 trees bent down. You know,
nice.
And so X's all over the place. They you know, from trees that have been placed there, like they didn't grow there. Their trees have been stripped of branches, by the way, stripped of branches and placed in an X formation in 2 different spots. We found bundles of branches, bundles of skinny tree strung out, and made X's out of bundles of trees. So,
do you still have the property?
No, we don't have that property anymore.
How many acres was it?
60 acres.
It was 60 acres out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of elk out there. And you got a nice family. How many kids you got?
We have 4 children.
Oh, 4 children.
We have 4
nice.
kids.
Where are you living at now?
Up in Whitefish.
And just give the name of your Bigfoot show that has that video in it.
Well, it's on my channel, Jeff of All Trades, Sasquatch sighting in Montana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One thing I love about this area is the amount of activity that we have, and it's also it shows you that we don't know everything, and that you know, our faith is justified in being able to know that there's things out there that we don't have to fully grasp and fully understand.
Yeah.
And that bleeds into our faith life on a much larger scale.
Nice. You know, I even got to interview a gal who had a very clear sighting of a dog man, 8 foot tall, kind of a werewolf. It's on my channel too.
So out in Marion, we have a lot of activity out there, like we've already discussed, but there's every once in a while you hear screams. And so I'm out there gathering firewood one day, and I'm listening, and there's screams coming out of the mountain, and it's exactly like I'm hearing from like Jurassic Park, for example. So this big, enormous roar comes right out of the hills, and it's 8 o'clock at night in the wintertime, so it's dark. It was a really, really bone-chilling experience to hear that close. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go inside and pretend like there's nothing there. You know, we would hear screams from one side of the lake on our side, and then on the other side of Bitterroot Lake, then we'd hear another one coming from the other side. We'd hear wood knocks all the time and stuff like that too. Right? So
I know that area pretty good because I hunted for years out of Thompson River, and you go west to Kalispell, and it's just about 20 miles, and there's that lake there. Is that Bitterroot Lake, right?
It's Bitterroot, yeah. So if you go 20 miles, you're going to hit Marion, and there's a gas station or whatnot there. And so north up that way.
A couple miles north.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's lots of activity out there.
Well, I want you to listen to this scream and see what you think.
Hi, my name is Steve. I'm from Vancouver Island, Canada, just off the coast of Vancouver, British Columbia. And encountered these strange noises about 3 times, but it was probably one of the most hair-lifting experience I've ever had.
Fasten your seatbelt, everybody, because here it is. Well, after hearing that, was there any similarities there?
Yeah, big similarities. We hear that quite often. The loudest one I heard out there in Marion had a little more of a rumbly growl to it, you know, as far as the roar is concerned. But we definitely hear stuff like that all the time.
Isn't that something? But they never bothered you, but your chickens were missing sometime.
So so I'm outside. Well, the chickens are outside. I was in my office, and I had, you know, there's always a couple of birds that like to kind of do their own thing, don't go back in the coop as well as they should.
Yeah.
Well, we had a couple sitting on the wood pile, and I heard boom on my front porch, because I had the wood sitting on the front porch of the cabin, and I heard, you know, chickens cutting up, and then I go and I look, and those two hens were gone after that big crash. I was on the porch. The next morning, I go out and look to check on our chickens that were in the coop. Now, the door on our coop was locked, and everything was locked up. They were locked up for the night. The door was still locked, but at the same time, 6 chickens were missing.
The door was still locked, so they got in there, got them, and then locked the door.
Closed the door back,
Wow.
but all of their roosts were knocked down on the ground.
Oh.
So they were all knocked down on the ground.
But they were smart enough to close the door back.
Were
there prints on that occasion?
Yeah. So there were, of course, there was lots of straw on the ground.
Yeah.
And it was frozen, but so we didn't get a whole lot of prints on the ground. But most of our prints we saw during the spring when the ground starts to thaw. That's when we see most of the prints. But yeah, we were missing 8 chickens as a result of that.
That's something that they closed the door behind themselves.
They closed the door. Our water trough was also lower. One time I had 13 eggs in the nest box. I had 13 eggs, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm going in for the night. I'll come out and get these eggs in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I go out there the next morning with my basket, because I didn't have a basket or anything with me. Go out the next morning, and every one of those eggs was gone.
Wow.
Every one of those eggs was gone. Now, people might say, well, maybe it's somebody messing with you. My neighbors wouldn't do that. And it's not only would they not do it, people know better. People know better, just go walking around properties over there, you know.
Yeah.
But we had trail cameras and everything else set up, and we didn't get anything on the trail cameras. You know, there were no people on the trail cameras or anything like that, which is another very odd thing. You know, 13 eggs go missing at once, chickens go missing, and there's nothing on the trail cameras, which is very odd.
That is odd.
Yeah.
But they were real beings that left real prints. And how long ago did you have that property?
Several years ago, we had that property. Yeah.
So when you saw that one on your same property, what did he look like?
He was black. He was black. Yeah, he was black, and he was tall. Like I said, there was a branch coming off of the big fir tree up there.
Yeah.
Now, I'd been up there a couple of times. There's a big rock outcropping up there, and I've been up there a couple of times, and I'd heard growls over there 2 times. And so I always thought that I was stumbling across a black bear or something like that, hearing those growls. And I look around, and there's nothing there. And so there's a big giant fir tree up there at the top of that hill, right next to those rocks. And his head, he was stooping, his head was coming underneath that branch, and I can't reach that branch by standing. You know, so
he was standing up, you reckon? He wasn't in the tree?
No, he was standing. He was standing. Yeah, he was peeking from behind the tree.
You can't even reach the
I can't even reach the branch, and his head was right underneath it. You know, and it's like he was kind of stooping to get underneath that branch to see me.
That's something.
Yeah.
You want to say anything about your YouTube channel?
Well, it's Jeff of All Trades. You know, we do leather work and woodworking and stuff like that. And I'm also a professional trader. And I teach trading. So I have lots of. I really believe.
Is that stock trading or trading other items?
We trade futures.
Okay.
So I teach people how to do that online. But at the end of the day, I believe that people, men especially, need to have a trade. Need to know how to do things with their hands and have. Multiple skills where they can take care of and provide for their family. And so I named it the channel Jeff of All Trades because
Oh
it
yeah,
kind of
nice. My dad told me, now, Bud, dig one well. Me, I already been a jack of all trade all my life, and
Yeah.
I never really did. I had a bunch of things going too. Well, tell us about the one you saw yesterday there at Bootjack Lake.
Yeah, so we went out there, took the kids over there to go check out the lake, and it was an evening time. We were just kind of driving around, and we saw a lot of activity, a lot of tree structures and stuff like that. And as we're walking along, about to leave, I looked down the ground, and sure enough, there was a really, really heavy footprint that just smashed down. All of the soil was just printed it all, just pushed it all down, right in the shape of a Sasquatch footprint. It was much larger than, I've got a size 12 boot here, and it was dwarfed my boot.
Or
you know.
even your son here, he thought it was a real Bigfoot track too.